knew from day one we were taking this big risk. And because we had that risk on our shoulders, we had to execute flawlessly. We had to be perfect in the early days so that a traveler would get off the motor coach and tell 10 people they were going to see in that city what a wonderful experience they had. And that's exactly what happened.
Welcome to the Pivotal Leader Podcast with Gina Trimarco, featuring lively interviews with CEOs, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who share their stories and best practices for shifting business from problems to profits. Sit back and get ready to pivot.
Hey, everybody, this is Gina Trimarco, Chief Results Officer of Pivot 10 Results, a training and strategy company that helps businesses shift from people problems to performance results. Each week on The Pivotal Leader, I feature inspirational leaders who know how to positively impact their customers, employees, and brand through culture building. On this episode of The Pivotal Leader, I'm interviewing Alex Danza, founder and CEO of Vonlane luxury motor coach service that he founded in 2014 to give Texas travelers an alternative to the delays and interruptions that accompany short-haul flights and the hassles of driving one's own vehicle. Starting with routes between Dallas and Austin, Alex has expanded the company's reach, and now the 5 biggest cities in the Texas Triangle are completely accessible on Vonlane, with plans for expanding out of Texas. I, for one, am pushing for South Carolina. This is no megabus. I wish I would have known about Vonlane a few years ago when I was on a Texas business tour, literally going from, I think, Houston to Dallas to Austin. And it just didn't seem to make sense to fly because no city was more than 4 hours, right? So it made more sense to drive, but I also didn't want to rent a car. And no offense to Megabus, but business is hard. And if there's an easier, more comfortable way, I'm going to do it. I would have paid good money to be on a luxury bus like Vonlane with less than 24 leather seats and amazing amenities such as complimentary snacks, meals and beverages delivered by an onboard attendant, noise-canceling headphones, Wi-Fi, satellite television, and an onboard conference room. Like, I want to be there permanently. Basically, he's built an airline on the ground, but an airline of the past, in my opinion. Remember when we loved to fly? Some of you might be too young for that, but we used to love to fly. You actually dressed up for it. You got complimentary everything, and it was fun to do. And Vonlane, by the way, is not just for business travelers. It's also for the leisure travelers. And hot off the presses, we learned that Alex has just been awarded in the past few days with the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award in the Southwest region in the category of emerging retail and consumer products. That's pretty cool and impressive. Prior to forming Vonlane, Alex was president of Savoya LLC, a provider of global chauffeured ground transportation services. While at Savoya, he developed the company into one of the most respected and successful companies in the $3 billion chauffeured ground transportation industry. His efforts led to partnerships with luxury brands such as Marquis Jet, NetJets, Exclusive Resorts, Neiman Marcus, and Inspirato. In 2017, Danza partnered with the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center to provide cancer patients with discounted, fully refundable travel on Vonlane's feet. How cool is that? He started his career as a consultant, first for Anderson LLP and later for Hitachi Consulting. During his 8 years in the field, Danza was responsible for managing strategic reengineering, systems implementation, and strategy development projects for large multinational clients in such industries as entertainment, hospitality, logistics, oilfield services, and automotive manufacturing. So I am really excited to get going with this interview. So let's jump in and learn from Alex. Hey, Alex, thanks for joining me on the Pivotal Leader podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
I want to start out by saying big congratulations on your Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's exciting for our team that's worked really hard the last 4 years to make Vonlane into what it is today. So it was great for them to get the recognition as well.
That's so awesome. And it's such perfect timing because it just literally happened days ago, right?
It did. It did just a couple of days ago.
And so it's in the category of emerging retail and consumer products, which is fascinating to me. So what I'd like to first do is just jump in and kind of give your elevator pitch on what's Vonlane all about.
Sure. Vonlane is scheduled luxury motor coach transportation for travelers in Texas. And we've really made traveling fun and stress-free again for business and leisure travelers that are moving between the major cities in Texas. So if you picture a private jet, which has great big comfy seats with lots of recline and personal space and an attendant fussing over you, we've built that on the ground. We've built a private jet on the ground. So our customers enjoy that luxury experience aboard a motor coach. And if they're a business traveler, they can board and be working within minutes and have a very productive ride between Dallas and Austin, for example, or Houston and San Antonio. And if they're a leisure traveler, they just love the stress-free aspect of it. It's easy, it's comfortable. You're not dealing with your legs being cramped under the seat in front of you. You have tons of room and personal space and lots of first-class amenities. You're just fussed over the entire trip by a wonderful attendant.
I was telling Paige, who connected us, that, gosh, and I know you're a newer company, and I'm trying to remember when I was, it might have been maybe when you first launched, but I was on a Texas tour, and I had to go Dallas to Houston to Austin. I was literally all over Texas, and I thought, well, gosh, flying doesn't make sense. And I didn't want to rent a car. I took another bus. I'll just leave it at that. And and I love experiences. I love travel experiences, but this was quite the experience that I did not want to ever repeat again.
And I love that you use the term experience because that's what this really is. It's an experience, and all travel is really an experience, leisure or business travel.
Right.
And so we've really focused on that the last 4 years, in that our purpose here at Vonlane is to provide an exceptional travel experience. And that starts from booking to that last mile of transportation. So, we've done partnerships with Uber and Lyft and Avis and things like that to make sure that the traveler has an exceptional experience from end to end. And when you look at things, and you mentioned not flying, door to door, our travel is very comparable from a total travel time perspective. The difference with Vonlane is that you're not wasting time in line at security, standing at a crowded gate where you can't get a seat. And with Vonlane, if you're a business traveler, you're working that entire time because you have the room you need. You have the high-speed internet that you need to be productive for that travel time. Whereas when you're flying on those short hop flights, it's very difficult to get anything done because you're going through the airport gauntlet. And once you're on the aircraft, there's not much room to even open up a laptop and get some work done. Our customers really enjoy the fact that they arrive at their destination and they have not fallen behind at all. And so you can ride from Dallas to Houston, get there and you're caught up, run around town all day to your different meetings, get back on the coach at the end of the day and do a day trip where you arrive back home and you're caught up on everything. You don't go into the office the next morning behind because you were traveling all day the day before, and you get to come home to your own bed. So lots of different benefits for the business traveler as well as the leisure traveler.
I feel like I should come to Texas just to ride around, and I feel like I would get more work done that way.
You do, and that was when we were building the company, that was the feel that we were going for. Is a lot of us in the business world, you hear it very often. People will sneak out of the office and go to Starbucks and put some headphones on, and just work for a couple hours, and they're They get so much more done than when they were in the office.
Absolutely.
That's the experience our customers have. When they get off the vehicle, when they get off that motor coach, they feel like they have been so productive because they're in an environment that's quiet, calm, away from the office. The phone isn't ringing, and they can really focus on getting tasks done for that trip between these cities. So we get a lot of responses back to surveys where people will say, most productive 3 hours I've had in months, or I achieved 0 inbox. And they love that feeling.
That's awesome. Now, I read somewhere is this true that you have an onboard conference room?
We do. And all of our coaches have a conference area, and a few of them have actual conference rooms that customers enjoy and can work in.
That, again, amazing. I'm going to go out of order on my questions because you talked about experience, and I think that's so important from a customer service standpoint. So I want to talk a little bit about the customer service experience. I'm very much into creating experience. Besides being a trainer and a consultant, I own an improv comedy theater, and it's all about creating the customer experience. We make the show all about them so that they want to come back over and over again. And you talk about creating raving fans with every ride. And I'm curious because customer service has really gone to the wayside in the past several years. What do you do specifically to train staff for that, to give a great experience?
I think it starts with having very well-defined processes and procedures. The 3 important things in a business are people, process, and procedure. And so, 1, we hire very slowly and very selectively. Our attendants are really the main point of contact that a passenger has with Vonlane. So the attendant core is superb, second to none, and they're trained very well, and then they're armed with very defined processes and procedures for how you wow a customer and how you serve a customer during a 3-hour trip, for example. And that's down to, detailed, timing of how often our amazing snack basket is brought around to a passenger, and when do the wet, cold towels come around on the silver platter. And if you see a passenger who is on an electronic device, bring them a little packet so they can clean their screen.
Wow.
At a certain point in the trip, bring around to all of your passengers who have glasses or sunglasses a little packet so they can clean their eyeglasses. So it's all those little touches that we don't just leave up to chance. They are defined by time and process and procedure for when an attendant has those touches with a passenger, and then taking it a step forward to train your attendants to get to know their repeat passengers. So yesterday, I had one of our chief attendants in my office, and I was pitching her on a new role within the company that I wanted her to move to. And her response was, "Oh, but my regulars are going to miss me so much because Mr. So-and-so, I have his coffee ready when he boards the way he likes it. And so-and-so likes to have a blanket and an eye mask waiting on the morning trip." And I said, Lita, you can train your replacement to do all those things for your regulars.
Wow.
And so that's the kind of service that we're building here, is that it's personalized by the attendants, but it's also proceduralized so that everybody does it the same way.
And back to what you said, it starts with the hiring too, because you can train all of those things. You cannot train someone to truly care.
That's right. That's
right.
right.
And it sounds like she truly cares.
She does. And, that's one of our core values within our company is devotion, and it's devotion to each other and to our customers. And that's something we look for when we're hiring. And, I'm a believer of giving people who are interviewing for any position different types of assessments. And so we do use an assessment tool for all of our hiring of attendants and motor coach operators to make sure that they do have that desire to serve others and to be servants throughout the day to their customers.
Which assessment tool do you use?
We use a tool called Beatrice Hallweg that's based here in Dallas.
Oh, okay. That's a new one I haven't heard of.
And then we have something different for our motor coach drivers.
Oh, that's interesting. So why two different assessments?
The assessment for the drivers is specifically for motor coach operators.
Okay.
So it asks a lot of specific questions about safety and operating a vehicle, and it's very scenario based for someone who's operating a vehicle like that.
So again, it sounds like what you're doing is you're not cookie cutting your process. You're thinking about, all right, in this area of talent, this is how we need to approach it, and in this area, we approach it this way. Typically, I don't hear of two different assessments that a company might do, so that's really interesting.
Yeah, we definitely do that due to the different responsibilities and the way we segregate the work aboard the coach amongst the crew. It's two very different roles.
So a little bit back to the training is how long do you train? Is there something specific that you've created for that? How does that training process look? Because training also seems to not be so important today. People are not spending the time to do it.
Yeah. So we have dedicated trainers for attendants and drivers. And so those are our senior individuals who have demonstrated an ability to train others. Not everybody's a trainer.
Right.
And so we've now identified who are the trainers in our organization, and they're responsible for the training program when we hire somebody who's new. Everything is, of course, documented. For example, there's an attendant training guide that the trainee and the trainer go through over a period of time. And then as well, every coach that we have, the electronic device aboard, the tablet, has training documentation for new hires to reference after they are kind of set free on their own. There's videos for them to watch if they have any questions about how something operates on the vehicle. So we give them lots of information that's at their fingertips when they're on their own aboard a coach, but they come out of training ready just due to the rigorous program that we put them through. That's
so great to hear. I'm happy to hear that. And that's why you're giving such a great experience.
Yeah, and there's a portion of the training that's real life training where they and the trainer are aboard a coach with real passengers, and so they get to experience the real life scenarios that an attendant faces day to day, and they're not alone at that point. If they're unsure of something, the trainer is right there to help them and coach them and guide them and point them to the answer that may be in the attendant manual, for example, so that they in the future know how to go and find the answer for something if they are alone.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about how you recruit and find employees. How do you attract top talent for your teams? You have the assessment part of it, but how are you getting them in the door before you get them to the assessment?
Our attendants are mostly coming from referrals from existing team members, which we really love, and we've got a referral program for our team where they receive different bonuses based on the tenure of folks that they refer in. So a lot of people know each other and will refer them into us. We get a lot of former airline attendants who maybe worked as an attendant for the airline for a while, went away, started a family, and now their kids are a little bit older and they're ready to get back into the workforce and don't want to go back to that life of being on the road every night. So this is a great opportunity for them. And then we also find a lot of individuals who are private jet flight attendants and are having a hard time finding steady, consistent work in that world. And they like the ability to join us and have that steady, consistent work and, again, be home every night. So that's a big selling point for us, is that you can do this job that a lot of people really enjoy, serving others. They enjoy the travel aspect of it, but they get to be home every night. And it's the same way with the motor coach operators. We attract the best drivers in the industry because with our business model, a driver is home every night and gets an assigned route that he or she learns, knows the ins and outs of the route down to they know at this point on the highway I should be in the right-hand lane versus the left-hand lane because there's a pothole there.
Yeah.
So they really learn the route. They learn the traffic patterns of the route. They learn the detours, and they like having that consistency. Whereas other motor coach companies are mostly charter operators. And if you're a driver, typically you could get a call on Sunday night and you're told that you're leaving town for 2 weeks the next morning. So you really can't plan your life, and you spend a lot of time out of town away from your family. So our drivers love coming to work for us, to be home every night, have a set schedule that they know weeks in advance, and drive the nicest equipment in the country.
Wow. I want to apply for a job. or just come ride the bus. What I'd like to talk about now, switch up a little bit, is I want to talk about risk and how you got this business started. And I read somewhere that you felt that in your gut, this was a good idea. And in the corporate world, I sure have been evaluated negatively on taking too much risk. Obviously, because I was doing it with other people's money and making gut decisions without stats and KPIs. And I even had a boss who said to me, "Gina, when you're president of the company, you can do whatever you want." So then that motivated me to become president of my company. As entrepreneurs, we have to take risks to progress and innovate. So what's your take on that? And how do you feel about employees who take risks now that you're kind of in the boss's seat?
From a personal standpoint, it's important to take risks. As a business leader, as an entrepreneur, this business was a huge risk from day one, in that it required a very large amount of capital to start up due to the cost of these vehicles. They are the most expensive motor coaches in the country. And we had to make that investment before we knew that this concept would be widely adopted. And it was on a risk basis to jump in, buy the vehicles, and then have to convince travelers to give us a try. And it's a big ask. We're asking people to spend, about $100 to ride 3 hours on a bus, when the last time they probably rode a bus was when they were 16 years old going to camp. And it was a very, very different experience than what we offer. So we're doing this also in Texas in the shadow of the beloved airline at Love Field that's been providing exceptional service for 30 years. So we're asking people to give up their vehicles. Texans love their cars. And we're asking people to try something other than flying the airline at Love Field. So it was a big ask, and it was a tremendous risk to take, thinking that people would take that first trip. But we were able to start small and convince early adopters who were ready to try something different. They were just done with years of dealing with the stress at the airport. Delays were up. There were more delays than there had been in the past. Lots of changes post 9/11, and driving themselves wasn't much better because they were just exhausted if they tried to do a day trip navigating the Texas highways. And so we knew from day one we were taking this big risk, and because we had that risk on our shoulders, we had to execute flawlessly. We had to be perfect in the early days, so that a traveler would get off the motor coach and tell the 10 people they were going to see in that city what a wonderful experience they had. And that's exactly what happened. We had very little funds for advertising in the early days, and we built the company based off this exceptional travel experience that people had. And they spread the word to their friends and family and coworkers, and it snowballed from there. And so we have that risk consistently every time we open up a new market. We recently opened up Fort Worth, for example. And so now we're having to convince people in Fort Worth that there's a better alternative to driving. There's a better alternative to going to the airport. give us a chance. Take that first ride and you'll see the difference. But it's difficult to get people to do that. So it's a tremendous risk every time we go into a new market or we open up a new route. And so we're risk takers here. And the team feels the same way in that they are constantly thinking of ideas on how we can enhance the service and what we can do better. We realized last year that we were not on an equal footing with the airlines and Amtrak when it came to being able to serve our customers alcohol. So, we took a big risk in hiring lobbyists, and we went to Austin to the state legislature and we testified and we got a sponsor and we changed the law so that a company like ours could serve alcohol to our customers. So It took a lot of time. It took a lot of resources. It was risky. It could have been shot down, but it passed. And now our customers are enjoying that benefit where they can have an alcoholic beverage at the end of the day.
And I would guess that sets a tone within your organization of the culture that we push forward to try different things and don't take no for an answer.
That's exactly right. Constantly looking for new things to try. We're constantly upgrading, enhancing the different amenities that we have aboard the coach. For example, we're now rolling out across our entire fleet video on demand, complimentary video on demand.
Wow.
So the coaches will have about 3,000 hours worth of complimentary TV movies that a passenger can watch on their personal device, their phone, their tablet, their laptop while they're riding. So if they forgot to download something, or they just, forgot to bring a book, or they just want to zone out and watch a movie, it's all going to be there available for them. It's a huge investment for our company to put these devices on the vehicles, but we feel like it's a risk worth taking because it enhances the passenger experience. So
you talked about, when you're new, it's hard to have money from marketing to attract, to get customers. Mm-hmm. What did you do to get that interest and then to convince them to come on board?
Originally, we were very fortunate to have a strong PR, strong public relations. And so there was a lot of interest from television, radio, newspaper about this service because it was so different and unique, and if it worked, it was going to be disruptive to the way people travel. Mm-hmm. And so that helped a lot by having our story told in the media outlets. That coupled with just really, like I said earlier, very, very good service early on to the early adopters who spread the word through social media very strongly, coupled with very targeted advertising over the internet. So our first foray into advertising was internet banner ads, Facebook ads, Google advertising, where we could see the effects of it. We knew each ad that was producing ticket sales. So that's the beauty of the internet advertising, is I can tell you how many times somebody clicked on an ad and how many times they then purchased a ticket. So for a startup, that was a great way to spend advertising dollars, because the risk with advertising dollars is sometimes you don't know if it's working.
Yeah, it's so hard to measure.
It's so hard to measure. A full page ad in a magazine, you don't know if it's working or not. But we were able to spend very targeted dollars on internet advertising. And the other great thing about the internet advertising, specifically the Facebook advertising that we did, was we could target it to specific demographics within specific zip codes with specific interests. So we knew who our potential customer was, and we went right after them through social media, and it worked.
And who is your target market?
So a big group of our customers are attorneys, consultants, individuals that bill their time for a living, because we give them billable hours back that they would lose otherwise when they're traveling. So whenever I travel, I always see an attorney boarding the coach with a big box of documents that, since there's so much room between rows, an attorney can come aboard with their box of documents, and I watch them, and they literally will just read for 3 hours and highlight, and I assume that's great billable time for them.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of our customer base, but we also get a lot of entrepreneurs and executives that have done the Texas travel thing for many, many years. They are at a point in their career where accumulating points on the airline is not as important to them as ease of use, being stress-free and being productive outweighs the points that they would get on the airline. They don't need those points anymore, the point and the earning point that they're at in their career. So they're looking for a solution like ours. So that's the business traveler that we typically get. The leisure traveler we get is a lot of elderly individuals who can no longer drive themselves to see their families in other cities, as well as elderly who have a tough time navigating the airport, and they love the fact that they can be dropped right at our doorstep, and that they are fussed over the whole time while they're aboard, and then their loved one on the other side can pick them up right at the doorstep with minimal walking. So we get a lot of that. And then the other traveler that we get is the last minute traveler. Our fares don't rise as the trip date approaches, unlike the airlines. So if you're looking for something that's less than 2 weeks away, for example, we will be over half the price of an airline ticket. So we're a great solution for last minute travelers. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And I love your partnership with Uber and Lyft, because I was smiling as you were saying that. I was on another bus, as I mentioned earlier, and I think I picked the wrong route. I was actually speaking in Fort Worth, and I think I ended up going to Dallas, and then I had to kind of reroute what was closer to Fort Worth, and it was Grand Prairie. Mm-hmm. And I have no idea where that is because I'm not from Texas. I'm like, I hope I'm not getting dropped off somewhere sketch. Where am I going? Yeah. I don't know. And so I was literally on my phone trying to find an Uber that would arrive as the bus was arriving, so that I knew there was a ride waiting for me, because I was just a little apprehensive because I didn't know where I was going.
Yes, that's a tremendous benefit for our customers. Not only that they can use Uber and Lyft when they arrive at their destination, but also our terminal partners are great hotels in each city. So in Austin, for example, we're taking you to the Hyatt Regency right in downtown Austin. It's an amazing property. Our customers receive discounted room rate there. So if you're a business or leisure traveler, you can walk off the coach and in just a few steps, you're inside a wonderful lobby. You can check in, go to your room, and then go about your day.
Brilliant.
And it's the same thing, in Dallas, we're at a great DoubleTree hotel here, and these are wonderful partners for ours and our customers.
Smart.
So
that is so smart.
And they're centrally located too, which is great. The feedback we get from customers is it's so much easier to ride Vonlane right into downtown Houston, right to the Hyatt Regency Houston, versus flying into Hobby and then having to figure out your way through the traffic back into downtown for your meetings. So we're taking our customers right into downtown.
Especially Houston.
Yes.
I forget where I flew into. I think I flew into Hobby, but I had to go all the way to the other side of Houston. It was like $100 cab ride.
That's right. Yeah. So if you probably went over to the energy corridor on the other side of town, and we would have left you right in downtown and probably 15 minute ride over there.
Well, that's great to hear, because I've taken other services where you're being picked up and dropped off, and not the most safe feeling environment.
Right.
So that's great. Let's switch over and talk about scaling and expansion, because I know that you're going to be trying to get into other states, just not be in Texas only. And what will your approach be to, I love this line, making the bus cool again? In other states, how will you scale and keep the experience fantastic as you grow elsewhere?
Well, that's the beauty of the model, and that what we've done in Texas can be replicated in another state. Very similar org chart could be replicated in another state. There are a number of states out there that have routes that are perfect for this type of solution. When you start to look at the communities of interest between the two cities, when you start to look at drive time, when you start to look at what the airlines offer between those cities. So we've identified where we will go nationally, and this is a national play for sure, and feel confident that we've built the template now that can be rolled out state by state with great people and utilizing the same processes and procedures and technology to make the experience just as strong in another state as it is here in Texas. And what we're really excited about is that we did it in Texas, where we have this airline at Love Field that everybody just loves and has been the default service provider for 30 years in Texas. We're excited to go out of state and tackle routes that are not served by that airline, that are served by some of the legacy airlines that we all have had many issues and challenges with. Mm-hmm. And the airfares are much higher because of the way those airlines operate versus the one here at Love Field. Mm-hmm. So we're excited to go give travelers in other states this amazing alternative to those airlines or driving themselves, and we think that they're going to be just prime for our service. So the future is very bright, though we still feel like there's more growth in Texas, and we will continue to grow Texas. There are more routes. We're going to launch a new route in Texas this coming November, and we're also expanding the number of departures that we offer in Texas this year. So we will go from 46 departures around the state to 66 departures just in the next few months. So we have a huge growth coming in the next few months here.
Can I put in a vote for South Carolina to be your next state?
I've heard that before. The Carolinas are very intriguing. Yeah.
Yeah, there's I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So I'm just going to leave it at that for you to.
I love it.
If you ever want to pick my brain on that, because I travel between both states tremendously, which I guess together they're probably as big as Texas. Something for you to think about. Now, you had mentioned, and I think I read somewhere how much a coach costs. So I know that your investment is huge. How do you go about, and this is for like any entrepreneurs who are trying to be disruptive with ideas, how did you go about raising that capital to get it off the ground?
You know, I had the benefit of this kind of being my second go around, and I spent 10 years with a group of investors in another business that was successful. And so when this idea came to me, and I mentioned this in my acceptance speech Saturday night at the Entrepreneur of the Year Awards, it was about a 30-minute conversation with one of my lead investors before he said, "Sign me up." So I was really blessed to have that opportunity to have former investors who believed in me and were ready to sign on again for another ride. I would say to someone who is getting started to really try and have some sort of track record when you're approaching investors that you can fall back on, and show that you have prior experience and past behaviors that will translate into success in the future. If I'm an investor, I want to know that you've kind of been there and done that. And so a young person, that I speak to today, I encourage them, instead of coming out of school and going to work for the big 50,000 person consultancy that's in 60 countries, to go find a young 1 or 2 year old company that's in startup mode and, get your experience there and learn watch that entrepreneur and grow with that company for a few years, and then go do your own thing. I think that's a great path for people to follow, and it's kind of what I did.
That's great advice. Thank you. We're coming towards the end. This podcast goes so fast. So just a couple more quicker questions. Where do you get your support or coaching or advising? Because when you're at the top of the chain, it's you, right? The buck stops at you. So how do you get your help and guidance?
That's a great question, and it's lonely, right? At the top,
yes,
as they say.
It's
not a cliche, and it's something I experienced in my last business as well. And for me, a couple of different things. I would recommend people to join some sort of organization of business leaders where you can have that sounding board. I joined a Young Presidents Organization about 10 years ago. And through that group, I'm paired with about eight or nine other business leaders. And we are kind of each other's personal board of directors. So we meet monthly, and we bounce business ideas off of each other. We bring challenges that we're facing to each other, and you receive the benefit of others' wisdom. And a lot of times you'll find people have been there, done that, had the same challenge, and can offer great advice. So that's been key to my success as being a member of YPO, as well as definitely recommend people in this type of role to have some sort of personal coach. So I have a coach that's based here in Dallas that, again, is just another sounding board, another person to talk to about struggles and challenges in the business place that gives an outsider perspective to what you're facing. And so those are two definite things that I think people should look at doing.
I'm a big believer in that. I'm a member of Vistage, and along those same lines, and I have found it tremendously helpful. And the irony is that I had not even heard of Vistage until I started doing this podcast a year and a half ago. And that's, I get such great, so I always ask that question where people get support, because I think it's important, whether or not you own a business, just to know where else to go, especially as you're rising. It gets harder and harder because it's not like you can go tell your employees what your problems are.
That's right. The YPO forum is very similar to a Vistage group, and it's tremendously valuable to a business leader.
Any favorite books or podcasts?
Oh boy, I'm not a podcast listener, unfortunately.
I hope you listen to this one when it posts.
I will. I would probably say, my favorite business book would probably be, Good to Great is a wonderful read for anyone who's running any aspect of an organization. It's something I would definitely recommend.
Well, it's time to wrap up. I really appreciate your time today to be on The Pivotal Leader. If people want to connect with you, learn more about you, learn more about Vonlane, what are the best ways to do that?
Our website is a great way to get a look at the motor coaches, take a video tour, check out some images, look at our schedule and see what we offer. That's Vonlane, VONLANE.com. You can book there as well if you'd like to purchase a ticket. It's very much like purchasing a ticket for an airline. You can always give us a call, 844-VONLANE, and we would love to help anyone out over the phone, tell them more about what we do if they're interested in traveling between some of the cities that we service, or even if they'd like to charter a coach for their own personal use. We do plenty of that as well, and that's a great way for businesses when they're moving a group of people to a corporate event or an outing or something like that. To have a vehicle and an attendant that is just first class at their disposal.
Oh, that's a great idea. You just gave me a bunch of ideas. My next trip to town, I'm only in for like 48 hours. So I guess I'll just have to book another trip so I can ride around.
Sure thing. We'd love to have you.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. We really appreciate your time today, Alex.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks again to Alex for being on The Pivotal Leader today. And thank you to our listeners for listening. And special thanks and shout out to MPD Ventures, an awesome agency out of Dallas who helps us with these podcasts by getting us amazing guests. MPD Ventures offers intelligent, integrated marketing solutions for businesses. Check them out at mpdventures.com. You can find show notes for this episode, including contact information for Alex on our website at thepivotaleader.com. The Pivotal Leader is a production of Pivot 10 Results, a strategy and training company that helps businesses shift from people problems to performance results. You can find this podcast on iTunes, and if you're an iTunes subscriber, please leave a rating and a review. Reach out to me if you need support with increasing sales or building a more engaged team in your organization. You can email me at gina@pivot10.com. That's pivot, the number 10.com. And do you know a pivotal leader who should be on this podcast? Maybe that someone is you. Drop me a line and let me know. Always looking for great leaders to be on our podcast. And my new closing motto for our listeners, if you want to maximize, you need to be willing to improvise. Now take us out, cool voiceover guy.
You've been listening to The Pivotal Leader with Gina Trimarco, owner and founder of Pivot 10 Results and Carolina Improv Company. You can find show notes for this episode on our website at thepivotalleader.com. The Pivotal Leader is a production of Pivot 10 Results, a strategy and training company that helps businesses shift from people problems to performance results. If your company needs help pivoting to success, visit pivot10results.com or email Gina at gina@pivot10results.com. And until next time, if you're feeling stuck in your business, it's probably time to pivot.